So what we have here is symbolism in plain sight. What you don't see in front of you.
Three dimensions, instead of a sphere that has up and down to it, you would only get a slice of that sphere. So a sphere would now look like a circle. So the first thing I want you to notice about this two-dimensional circle is that for me in 3 dimensions, looking at this two-dimensional plane, I can see the entire circle at one time. I see everything.
Because he's high. He's high up. He could see it. When you're high, you could see it.
The inside of it, the outside of it, everything, all at once. But for somebody living in this two-dimensional world, they don't see a circle, but they see a line. You can see what I mean as I start from above, I can see the entire circle, but as I come onto the plane, that circle shrinks down and gets flatter and flatter and flatter.
Your perspective turns flat, where you don't see anything. You just see the linear. You just see the surface. No depth.
Until eventually it just becomes a flat line. So if these two-dimensional beings live only on this flat plane, all they see is lines. So what would a sphere look like to this two-dimensional person? Well, remember that a two-dimensional person can only see a slice through the sphere, and they would only see it if it's in their plane. Anything outside of it, they can't see. They only see what's in this plane here. So in order to see this, I would have to move it into the plane. But what it would look like from their point of view, it would look like a circle just suddenly appears and then gets bigger and then smaller and then disappears. And so me as a three-dimensional being moving this 3D object through their two-dimensional plane would seem quite mystical. It would seem like things suddenly appear, then disappear, appear, then disappear. And with that in mind, now we can start to understand what it would be like for a four-dimensional being to move a four-dimensional object through our three-dimensional space. So I'm going to show you what it would look like if a four-dimensional being was to move a 4D sphere through our three-dimensional space. It would be similar to the two-dimensional circle, starting small, getting bigger, and then going small again. But it would be in 3 dimensions. So it would look something like this. Okay, so here's my 4-dimensional ball. And what you're actually seeing is the very tip of the 4-dimensional ball. This is the small circle, but because we're in 3 dimensions, it's the small sphere at the tip of the 4th-dimensional ball. And I can move it around and do anything I want with it, but watch what happens when I summon the powers of a 4th-dimensional being to move the ball through the 4th dimension and through our 3D space. Well, it would look something like this. Okay, they're moving it through the 4th dimension, and as he's moving it, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And stop. So now you can see, as it got moved through the 4th dimension, the size changed in our 3 dimension here. So now we have a larger sphere, but we're not quite to the center of the 4-dimensional spheroid. So let's set it down and have the 4th-dimensional being move it through the largest diameter that shows up in our 3 dimensions. Okay, and go. So now it's moving through the 4th dimension, which is making the sphere get bigger and bigger and bigger in our 3 dimensions. Until finally we end up with this. So now the 4-dimensional spheroid is at its largest diameter in our 3-dimensional space. And so now I have a very large sphere. So we know that a 4-dimensional being could suddenly appear, then disappear in our 3-dimensional space, could make objects randomly appear, disappear, change shape altogether, and it would seem quite mystical. But here's an even weirder thing that a 4th-dimensional being could do. They could turn you into your own mirror image of yourself. Let me show you what I mean. So going back to our analogy in 2 dimensions, here's our 2-dimensional guy. So now suppose in this 2-dimensional world, he's looking at this object, there's also a mirror behind it. So this line represents a mirror. So looking in that mirror, the mirror image looks like this. But no matter what he does in this 2-dimensional world, he cannot get this object to look like its mirror image other than just looking in the mirror. But me as a three-dimensional being, I can come in and I can take it out of this two-dimensional world, flip it, and now it becomes a mirror image of itself. So because I was a three-dimensional being and I was able to take it out of this two-dimensional world and flip it in my three-dimensional world, now this is permanently the mirror image of itself for this two-dimensional person now. So the same can be said in 3 dimensions to 4 dimensions. That means that this 4th dimensional being could take this pretzel bag, flip it in the 4th dimension, and now it would be permanently a mirror image of itself in our 3-dimensional world. In fact, you would never be able to hide anything in our 3-dimensional world from a 4th dimensional being. Everything would be present at the same time. They'd immediately be able to see what is inside this box. Similar to how I can instantly see what's inside this box, but this 2-dimensional person wouldn't be able to see it because it's being blocked by the outside. So it would be quite amazing to see some 4th dimensional thing moving through our 3 dimensions and making things reappear, change shapes, do all sorts of different things, even making mirror images of things. But is there a 4th dimension of space? Well, actually there could be. String theory actually suggests that there's 11 spatial dimensions, but only 3 of them are big enough to notice. So we have 3 spatial dimensions that are big enough to see any changes, but the other dimensions aren't big enough to notice any difference with movement. Hey everybody, thanks for watching another episode of the Action Lab. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you're not subscribed yet, remember to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when my latest videos out. And head to theactionlab.com to check out the Action Lab subscription box where you can do experiments